Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Torah on Tap. We are in Manifesting Your Dreams class number 6. Okay, so if you're here for the first time, I'm sorry. Much of what I have to say tonight will be hopefully somewhat meaningful and not meaningless. But I believe there are enough ideas in here for you to kind of get the gist of what we've been doing for the last 6 weeks. We only have another 3 sessions left in this particular topic. And like all things in life, good things do come to an end. Now, when we started this journey together, we spoke about the idea that human beings have the ability of actually bringing forth newer vistas of reality. That you are somewhat in control of the circumstance that you're in. As a matter of fact, the only thing that you can control in life is your response to the circumstances you find yourselves in. Okay? That's all you have. I can't control the circumstance is the circumstance. And I just really needed a better tea, and voila. I wanted real tea. I'm like, I took the tea bag, I'm like, I have a Lipton. I'm like, I wish there was real tea. I turned around, Rabbi, I have a tea for you. Boom.
I also have a tea for you.
There you go.
Peppermint.
There you go. No, I'm not a peppermint guy. All right, anyway, okay, so let's talk about quantum leaps for a second. Okay, there's a lot of discussion in the news and the media over the last few weeks about quantum states and quantum superpositions and so on and so forth. I'm not going to do that, but we'll talk about the idea that when electrons are observed, okay, they can somehow pop in and out of existence. They could appear in one place and out of nowhere appear someplace else, with zero, ability of noticing how this particle has moved from point A to point B. No movement, no trace of movement, and so on and so forth. We call that thing a quantum leap. Things in the quantum level, quantum mechanics, move in ways that you and I cannot begin to understand. Things pop in and pop out of existence. Now, I think this is it's important because even though you can't trace the path of this electron, we understand that the observation of the actual molecule itself impacts the nature of how this molecule will respond. Observation impacts reality. We've spoken about this for a lot over the last few weeks. It's kind of like a tuning fork, okay? Imagine for a moment you have a tuning fork. The tuning fork will create a particular type of frequency and sound, right? And it's very possible that it could make a sound at a frequency that you cannot experience or hear. But if there was a way for you to kind of like vibrate similarly enough to the to a frequency that's the opposite of that particular tone, you'll be able to hear it. If you're in sync with the vibrations that are around you, okay, you're able to go ahead and experience some of what's happening around you. But if you're not doing anything in life, if you're moving through life aimlessly, if you don't have a clear vision of who you are and where you want to go, you, my friends, are stuck. And when you're in a stuck state, you can't take quantum leaps. When you're in a position where you don't have clarity as to where you want to go, who you want to be, what you want to accomplish, nothing around you can become a reality. You're just stuck on a linear path. And I'm all about making, taking as many leapfrogs as possible through life. I don't want to go through the normal route. I don't want to go through every single ladder. I don't want to go through every particular, straight line. I want to take as many jumps as possible. And here you are, young adults, looking for all sorts of things that you would like to bring forward in your lives. And some of you may feel somewhat stuck, some of you don't. Some of you are not even thinking about being stuck at all. Regardless, bottom line is that if there was a way that you could alter the course that you're on right now, the trajectory that your life is going to take you on, this beautiful journey, would you want to be in a position where you could learn how to fast track that change? The answer for everybody should be, yeah, of course I want to. Why would I want to live a mundane, boring life? First step is, and we've said this over and over again, this is a quote number 1, Rabbi Mendel Schneerson, he says, think good and it'll be good. You cannot grow, you cannot accomplish, you cannot build, you cannot achieve if you are in a negative states. Only positive states are able to create change and growth. Negative states is a continuation of you being stuck. Remember that in Hebrew, the alphabet, each letter has a story that it's telling. The Aleph represents infinite, the Ein Sof, the Bet represents the brackets, the Bayit, the home, the things that are inside. After that is the gimel. The gimel is gomel. It's running after. It's got a leg running after the dalet. The dalet is dal. It's dalim. It's poor. It's not going anywhere. The dalet is considered to be poor because you have two intersecting lines. That's what a dalet looks like. Two lines coming together, facing nowhere, going nowhere. Dalet is poor because it has no vision of where it needs to be going. When you're stuck, you're depressed. The he, which is a dalet with a little yod on the bottom left, represents simcha. Chamisha and simcha are the same letters. Expansiveness is 5. Okay, 555. Not such a good number, but for some. But it's the letter of expansion because when expansiveness has gone too far, it can create a problem because there's no boundaries. And whenever there's no boundaries, you're in trouble. So you want to be expansive at one hand, but on the other hand, you want to have some boundaries. You can't go out and do anything and everything you want. And this leads me to something that you and I, God willing, will read together. If you're here on Thursday in the morning, you'll hear it, and if not, on Shabbat during the morning as well. We say, Az Yashir Moshe. This week's parsha is Parshat Beshalach. Okay? And it's the story of how the Jewish people were standing at the Yam Suf. I love this imagery, because when you think more deeply about what the verses are saying, the imagery is very different than what the movie showed me as a kid, right? The Charlton Heston rendition of the Ten Commandments, the Jews are leaving in their hordes in the desert, and then Pharaoh and his soldiers decide they want to come and arm themselves and bring back their slaves. And as they try to do this, a massive fire cloud. Actually, there's a word for this. I just saw this. When a fire becomes a tornado, fire-nado. That's the word. That's actually a word. And I saw a video of it in LA. The news broadcasted a fire-nado. So imagine like a tornado fire, right, swirling around. And that was the imagery I have of God creating his pillar of fire coming down and separating the Egyptians from the Jews. And they're all bugging out. Oh my God, we should have stayed in Egypt. Why did Moshe take us out? Why is God doing this to us? He hates us. We're just going to die in the desert. Better to have been slaves to Egypt, to Pharaoh in Egypt. Okay? So then Moses comes up. He says, "Don't worry, my fellow Jews. I will save you." He lifts up his arms, and the ocean splits. And you have the horns blasting and the music, whatever it is, and the ocean splits, and it's like crazy, like, oh my God. And everyone jumps in. Now, if that were me, right, and that were you, and if this group decided just to somehow get into like a time machine, and we were standing there, and that vision or version of the Exodus actually happened, you and I would not jump into the river. We would not jump into the Yam Suf. You wouldn't do it. It's too scary. It's the scariest thing ever. There's actually two opinions as to how the sea split. One opinion is the opinion that I love, right? Nachshon ben Aminadav. Nachshon ben Aminadav says, you know what? I'm not waiting for miracles to happen. If this is the direction God brought us in, you know what I'm going to do? I'm jumping into the water. And he keeps walking, like a man possessed, walking and walking and walking and walking as the water gets higher and higher and higher and higher, and it passes up his nose, right? That means he can't breathe anymore. It's at that instant the ocean splits. Now, when you envision the ocean splitting, you see it the way you did in the Prince of Egypt. Well, there's a straight path, a clear beeline for the other side. That's not what happened. Midrash says that they took every few steps they took, a little bit more of the water opened up. So you were always stuck in the ocean. There was never an open channel to run through. Every few steps you took, more and more of this thing opened up for you because it required a little bit of faith, or maybe a leap of faith on your part for you to create a situation where the miracle can actually become miraculous. Rambam says that, God bless you and your family.
Rambam or Rambam?
Maimonides, Rambam. That any miracle that takes place in this world, it has to be booted into the system before the world began. God bless you again.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That means that every single ness that's going to happen ever in history has to be part of the system itself. It's in the background. It's happening. It's running in the background of the system itself. And therefore, the Rambam quotes the Midrash that says that there was before he created the world, he went to the Malach of the Yam Suf and said, "Hey, I'm going to bring these neshamot to your beach, and when you see them, I want you to split. So the Yam says, no problem. He sees them, he sees the neshamot, and he says, okay, Hashem, no worries, I got you, I'm going to split. Time starts, year 0 or year 1, however you want to count. Adam and Eve, they sin, they're expelled. A few hundred years pass, thousands of years pass. Now the Jews are standing at the Yam Suf, at the scene, and Hashem says, okay, yallah, let's go, split. What does the Yam Suf say? Sorry, honey, I ain't splitting. God says, what do you mean you're not splitting? We had a deal. This is part of the system. He says, no, these are not the neshamot you showed me. So the Yam Suf says, Hashem says, of course they're there. I'm not gonna bamboozle you. These are the actual neshamot. Yam Suf says, no, they're not. Hashem says, look closer. Looks a little closer. These were the neshamot that were tainted and tarnished by the hardships of being in Egypt. And eventually he splits. Right? I love the dialogue in the Midrash. I love the fact that there's a dialogue like that. Everything is in black and white. There isn't a moment where you can just snap your fingers and things are just going to manifest for you. This is not abracadabra. Even in magic shows, in the ancient world of magic, abracadabra actually means avareka adaver, I will create as I speak. Something has to happen on your side. What are you offering? What are you giving? And I believe some of what I'm going to share with you is some of what has been lost in Jewish practice. I would say more specifically in tefillah, in prayer, and even in thought. And what I did was a lot of this is not just sources, just ideas that I think are ideas that are super helpful when it comes to helping, helping you reconsider the way that you're thinking right now, and help upgrade your thinking to something that will get you to the place that you want to go. Okay, so look at number 3. So the word az, then, signifies a moment of transformation, a transition from darkness to light, from concealment to revelation. The use of az in the Torah highlights a pivotal spiritual awakening, where one gains clarity and recognizes divine providence in a new profound way. At the splitting of the sea, the Israelites will reach the level of the elevated level of faith. Until that moment, they had witnessed miracles, but only with the parting of the sea did they fully grasp God's presence and kindness. That's when they said, "Azeh keli v'anbei." They've actually pointed, that is God. The experience led them to sing in gratitude, expressing their newfound understanding and connection to the divine. Az represents those moments in life when we transition from confusion to clarity, from hardship to redemption. It is a reminder that within every challenge lies a potential for spiritual elevation and connection to God. That's what was happening at that moment in time, right? But it comes with there's a pattern here. This number 1, gratitude. When you wake up in the morning, what's the first thing you say? Modeh. Thank God I am alive. Right? That's what you're saying. And if I'm here right now, there's something unique about my particular time. Let me make sure that I am tuned into the right frequency of the world around me. And that's what we say, I trust in your faithfulness. My heart will exalt the deliverance. I will sing to the Lord, for Hashem has been good to me. Oh yeah. So what does that mean, right? How do we awaken this concept of being in a state of Ani b'chazdecha b'tachti yagel libi v'yeshuatecha? How do I move myself into a place where I can truly see that the universe itself has a divine being, an infinite being, an Ein Sof, right? Something with no beginning and no end, and that He put me in this world so that I can connect to Him, so that He can give me everything that you want. He can give me everything that I need to grow. That's ultimately what we want. Yeah.
Well, the translation is a little bit off because
It's not me, it's Safario. You could take it with
well,
that.
no, because it's Bani b'chastecha batafti. It's
Yeah.
past tense.
Yeah.
And then that.
It's actually the Sensino translation. I'm not.
It's just a quick thought. So last year when Vivian Hidary taught a class on Amuna and Yetziat Mitzrayim, she talked about how because you have seen good in your life, you can have faith that there is more good happening. And Miriam teaches us that. So if you already had chesed, and you can plug into the knowledge, so to speak, of what you've experienced, it can fuel your faith, belief, bitachon, and in the present moment, you can feel positive and have joy. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Yes, that is a way of explaining the pasuk. No question about it. I want to use the pasuk as a way of as a diving board, so that we can talk a little bit about the power of visualizations. And this was a study that was done by Dr. Lozado at the University of Chicago in 1996. I don't remember the names of the basketball teams that actually did this, but we've spoken about this before. He did 3 control groups, right? Where they visualized practicing. They actually one was actually went out and practiced more free throws. The second group only visualized making free throws, but not physically practice. And the third group did nothing. So after a period of time, results showed that improved significantly as expected. Group 1, Group 2 only visualized, showed nearly the same improvement as Group 1, despite never physically practicing, and Group 3 showed no improvement. Why was Group 2 successful at becoming better? Is it all I need to do is just think about something and I get better at it? Why is the visualization part of, like, I always thought it was practice, right? So how does the practice of visualization help us achieve levels of success in the things that we want to do? Yeah.
Because your mind actually cannot tell the difference between actuality and visualization.
Okay, so in your mind, it's true. The mind has a difficult time to distinguish between those reality and mental, the mental use of imagination. There is something else called muscle memory that is there also, even though that these guys were not doing that, but somehow just even the evoking the mind and using it for a visualization somehow enables the user to get better at whatever he or she is trying to do. That is the power of creating a focus on who you want to be and where you want to go. You see, for most people, we're not thinking deeply enough about who we are. We think more deeply about our careers. We think more deeply about how we're making money. We're thinking deeply about where we're going on vacation. We're thinking about objects, and we're not thinking about the self. And by the way, I'm not saying you should not have those objects. I'm not saying you should not have awesome things. I'm not saying you should not go on vacation. I'm not saying you should not make a lot of money. You should do all those things. But having all the things in the world at the expense of not defining and clarifying the self is a tragedy, because those external things are superficial at best. I would say dangerous for sure, most of the time. And the reason why I say they're dangerous is because they create the illusion of you being happy. They create this fictitious belief that you're satiated with a distraction when in fact there's nothing there. I know people that are much significantly older than me. They've lived their lives. They're in their late 70s, early 80s, and they're miserable. They made a lot of money, but there's nothing there for themselves. The whole pursuit was materialism. And again, I'm not suggesting we should not have those things, but you can't live your lives for the pursuit of those things and ignoring this idea called the self. That you yourself has a type of development that needs to take place. It's funny when you think about it. When universities first began, right, there were no degrees in any profession. If you were a student at Harvard, at Yale, at Princeton, at Oxford, or at Al-Azhar University, the oldest university in the world, 1,300 years ago, right? My favorite stat. Al-Azhar University, when Rabbi Eliezer started it in Egypt, the oldest university in the world. There were 0 degrees. What did you get a degree in? You got one in theology, which is religion, and the other is philosophy. That was it. And really, both of those subjects was the study of the intellect, study of critical thinking, communication, or the development of the self. The Torah is about the development of the midot. Are you being more kind? Are you being more patient? Are you being more loving? Are you being more understanding? And so on and so forth. That's what it was. That's what you did. How did you get a job? You went and you found an apprentice. And you apprentice to this person. Now, if I am a lawyer, an accountant, a doctor, why would I want to take you under my wings?
Because one day you're going to...
Oh, you spent 4 years studying theology or philosophy. You studied critical thinking. You spent all that time developing the self. You have a clear understanding of purpose of self. Yeah. You have disciplined your mind. I'll train. Today, we got rid of all the disciplining stuff, all the developing of the self, and the whole function of universities today is to get you a job. How many of you find yourselves making so many decisions? How many of you are using more brain power for your careers than you are for the developing of the self? Think about how much time you spend on your education, right? Whether it's Jewish school or not, it doesn't matter. Even today, day schools today are really not interested in. I actually had this conversation with I gave a class in Columbia a few years ago, and the president of Flatbush Yeshiva was in my class. And I made like a statement, something like, no yeshivas really prepare their students for the real world. So the president gets me, he's like, what do you mean? Of course we did. At Flatbush Yeshiva, we do. Right? I'm like, oh no, I love this, is perfect. But I'm like, you really think you set up your student? Like, yeah. I'm like, do you prepare your students for becoming better human beings? Or is it just about getting the best colleges? Just like best colleges. I'm like, then you're failing your students. Of course you should prepare your students for the best colleges, but if you're doing that without giving them the tools to think about what does it mean to be in a happy, healthy relationship, what does it mean to be a husband, a wife, what does it mean to be a community member, what does it mean to give, how am I growing myself? You failed your students. And now there's no excuse anymore because you have the freedom to choose to do whatever it is you want to do, and here we are. Rabbi Salanter, the founder of the Musar movement. Number 6, he would instruct his students to use the power of visualization and mental imagery to develop their character traits, their midot. He taught that by mentally rehearsing a desired behavior, one could train the mind and the heart in anticipation of actualizing the change in real life.
Rabbi was talking about this.
There you go, we're on the same frequency. I was preparing my class in his office today, see? A student working on a particular trait would first practice in their mind, imagining themselves responding with patience, kindness, or self-control in various situations. Mental practice helps bridge the gap between knowledge and action, making inner transformation more achievable. While visualization is a powerful tool, Rabbi Salanter emphasized that the ultimate goal is to internalize the emotions associated with these new behaviors. True change occurs when a person not only thinks about transformation, this is important, but deeply believes in it, generating the emotional energy necessary to manifest change in reality. If there's no emotion behind something, it's not going anywhere. Yeah.
How do you change your belief?
Good question. So it depends on what's missing. For some people, their beliefs are stuck in false beliefs. So when you're dealing with a false belief, then the only thing I can do is to help you get to a truer belief, or a belief that shows you that those beliefs that you're holding on to are false. That's one type of belief, which is it's rooted in a cerebral issue, a misunderstanding of the world. I'm an atheist. I don't believe in God, and therefore I have no belief. Right? Now, what I've found in my personal experience is that most of the time, my personal experiences show me that 95% of the time, most people have these strange beliefs because of emotional issues and not cerebral issues, right? And so now when it's an emotional issue, that becomes a whole other animal. Because now I need to prove to you that your issue is not cerebral. I cannot prove to you that your beliefs are false. I have to work through your own emotional issues and help you deal with your psychiatric things that you haven't dealt with your whole life and help you overcome that. Now that can happen, that takes longer. It's much easier to have a cerebral conversation because 1 + 1 is 2 and 2 + 2 is 4. That's easy. But having an emotional, unpacking an emotional issue takes a lot of time. It takes a rapport, a lot of trust, a lot of patience. Ain't easy. Okay, but it's possible, yeah.
The question about visualization, does it only work on something you've tried before and want to get better at? Or let's say a person never picked up a paintbrush, but he wants to be a good painter.
Yeah, it could work in anything, in any aspect of your life. We believe en davar omed lefnei haratzon. Nothing stands in the way of the will. It's a quote from the Zohar. And that means that the more you truly want something, right? The more you want something more passionately, the more that thing becomes your reality. And if it's something that you have not achieved or something you do not have, it's something because you do not want it. Does anyone here paint? Anyone here an artist? Yeah? So some people are born with a natural predisposition to paint.
I'm not.
Oh, okay, so I have a daughter who's my youngest daughter, Tamima, Emma. She's she's actually pretty good. I'm shocked at like how awesome she is. Like she brings things home. I'm like, who did that? Your Mora? She's like, no. Like I did that. I'm like, and you chose all the colors? She's like, yeah. I'm like, and you all the lines and that. She's just amazing. Now she has been working in this world of art since she's like 3 years old. She's always had a knack for it. She loves it. She likes it. She held a pencil beautifully, a pen. She's just very, she had very good hand coordination stuff, dexterity, and she's really good at what she does. And over the years, she's built herself on it. When you have a natural predisposition for something, you naturally find the confidence to keep working on it over and over again until you get better and better at it. But for most of us, when we're frustrated with something, I don't want to try new things. How many people here play the guitar? Okay, one guy? I was gonna say it's for sure at least one guy in here that plays the guitar. All right, fine. Now, how many people here violin is not happening at this point, but that's because your ears are no longer able to kind of like pick up those frequencies, but every single person here could learn to play an instrument, right? The only reason why you have not learned to play an instrument is simply because you don't want to play that instrument. How do you start wanting something? We're going to do that together, hopefully today. Okay. So number 7, Chaim Moran. He says this is from Rabbi. This is a book that Rabbi Nachman of Breslov wrote. He says experiencing the future world in the present. Okay. Actually, I'm actually doing this in the morning with Rabbi Dessler. Same idea. And this is what the Rabbi Nachman says. He's the righteous of the future world will proclaim, "This is the God we hope for." This declaration reflects the deep and tangible connection to God that will be fully realized in the world to come. However, one can taste this connection even in the present world. Through faith, spiritual practice, and deep awareness, a person can access glimpses of divine reality with reality that will be fully revealed in the future. The experience of divine closeness is not reserved solely for the afterlife, but can be cultivated in the here and the now. That means that you have the ability of drawing from an other dimension. You're able to bring in that power into this world. And maybe this would explain why there are some supernatural things that happen for some of these rabbis that lived not too long ago. Like I have a rabbi who was 18 years old. Him and his 2 friends went to see the Baba Sali. All right, yesterday was his yahrzeit. That's why I'm quoting it. We're having you in mind. They went to see the Baba Sali. Now, the custom was that if you were going to see the Baba Sali, you had to go to the mikveh, right? So these 3 guys are there. They're all American, from Queens and Brooklyn. One guy's like, "Dude, I'm not going to the mikveh. It's disgusting. I'll just, I'll wash my armpits and like wet my hair, right?" So he went to the sink and he whatever it is, and these 3 guys walk in, right? And the Baba Sali points at the guy who sketched his immersion and said, "Ata Ramai, you're a liar. Semipo, get out." Right? So I'm like, holy cow, how on earth did he know that? Right? Was he nervous? Did he have a little tick? Does he see this all the time? One guy's, how did he know it? Now, I have a suspicion he smelt it. No, I'm serious. I think that there's a reach, there is a smell that you and I do not have the ability to smell, like certain fragrances or smells in the air a dog can pick up and you can't. There are all kinds of things in the ether that you and I do not have access to. But when you live a life of tahara, of kedusha, is it possible that there are certain sensitivities that these people have they could pick up on? 100%. There's an awareness that you and I don't have. And these people were able to tap into it. Remember, the Vilna Gaon, okay? The Vilna Gaon was a savant. We have no idea what his IQ was like, but he's called Gaon, even though he lived in the 17th century, which means he's really an Achron, right? He's called Gaon. That's a different time period of different rabbis. Even the Rambam is only a Rishon, right? Gaon is before that, the Gaonim. That's like the 8th century to the 10th century. That's the Gaonic period. 10th century to the 14th century is the Rishonim, and then after that, so where we are right now, is Achronim. How do you get there? The guy was a super savant genius. He saw the world differently than we did. Before he wrote down a halakha, he fasted for 30 days, right, to make sure that each word was expressed in a way that did not conceal or take away from anything that is written in halakha. He wanted to be super clear. That's crazy. Was he just like an OCD? Was he nuts? I don't think so. I think that when you're truly in love with something, to be in love with something means that I will do anything and everything to get it right. That's what it means. When you're in love, I'm married to this really good girl, and I really like her a lot. And I try my best to make her happy. I'm not good at it always, right? But I do everything I possibly can to make her happy. I make the phone calls, I try to do the gifts, sometimes I do stupid things because I'm crazy. I want to test boundaries, but at the core, right, I want to do what's right. And she knows that. I hope she knows that by now. I'm sure you're not going to watch this, but anyway, but the point that I'm making is that when you truly love something, your nature, you obsess about it. That's normal, that's healthy. So these people lived in a world where they loved their development, they loved their connection to God. Most people today, they like it. They're not in love with it. Okay, so you have these two psukim, Anochi Hashem Elokecha. We spoke about them a couple weeks ago. The first of the 10 Commandments, I am God that brought you out of Egypt, the land of Egypt, the house of bondage. Right, that is God is infinite, right? And number 2 is Lo Yelech Elokim Acharim, and God is there shall be no other God before you, which basically means that God is the beginning, God is the end, don't go anybody else. How do you create angels? How do you create powerful frequencies, forces to benefit you in this world? So here are several steps, okay? Number 1, the first fundamental principle, recognizing that God is our unlimited source. This is part of your visualization, my friends, okay? One who solves all our problems and removes all obstacles in their lives. This is what you should be doing. This is a daily affirmation right here. You want a visualization? The next 3 pages are all visualization exercises, okay? Sefer Tanya says, when reciting Shema Yisrael, a person must view themselves as if on that very day God is bringing them out of Egypt. This is not just historical remembrance, but a personal, ongoing reality. Spiritual Egypt, right? Mitzrayim, Metzrayim, right? The constricting sea represents a limitation or blockage preventing the soul from fully expressing itself, and you were freed from that. So the rule number 1 is, I am your problem solver. Recognizing this truth allows one to break free from internal and external limitations. That's what Anochi Hashem Elokecha is. There are no limitations except for the ones you impose on yourself. God is there to break you free from all of those shackles. Number 2, okay? The second principle is exclusive reliance on God, right? You shall have no other gods before me. This means not seeking solutions from other sources that lack divine power. Chavot HaLevavot says, if a person places their trust in something other than the almighty infinite source, then measure for measure, God leaves them to the hands of that false power. This aligns with the idea that not chasing after empty cisterns, seeking sustenance and solutions from sources that ultimately cannot provide. That's what Avodah Zarah was, right? You choose where you want to draw your power from. There's all kinds of interesting things in the universe that are willing to go ahead and serve you. We believe, according to the sages, right, in the Gemara, that when someone went out and he worshipped Avodah Zarah, his prayers were answered. Think about that. You're drawing energy from a negative space and getting what you want. That does not mean that what you're receiving is good. It could very well mean that what you're receiving is actually bad. The idea of manifesting isn't just sitting there and saying, Rabbi, I'm going to sit there all day and I'm just going to use my imagination to will my Prince Charming and my beloved princess who's stranded in that and stuck in that castle. That's not how it works. The idea of manifesting is that I use my imagination to recognize the things that I am lacking so that I can work on the developing of the self so that the vessel, which I am, is now worthy of receiving that infinite light. That's the thing that most people don't get. It requires work, and no one likes to hear that word because I want instant. Give me the pill, give me the, pop it in the microwave for me, put it in the toaster, I want it to pop out immediately. I don't want to work for anything. This idea of visualizing, we see in the Amidah. When we say the first bracha in Amidah, Elokei Abraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov, why can't you just say Elokei Ha'avot? You got to go through each one. When you're saying the words in the Amidah, you're supposed to be thinking about what does it mean to be an Abraham? What does it mean to be a guy who, who had to fight for his belief, who had no teachers, who was alone, who was childless in a world where people made fun of him. They criticized his ideas. He was the guy that was always on the other side. He was an Ivri, right? He was the guy that had to convince people of truths, having all these philosophical conversations about God alone, having domestic issues with his wife and his maidservant, having issues with his children. I mean, the guy had a hard, his father wanted to have him arrested. He had a hard life. Abraham represents kindness, chesed. You don't just say the word, oh, okay, Abraham. No, you're supposed to pause for a moment and make Abraham real for yourselves. Yitzchak was born into a family with all that pressure of being like his dad, right? Ready to sacrifice himself for his father's beliefs. But these were his own personal beliefs, and he believed more deeply in some levels than his father. Yaakov, recognizing the differences in his father and his grandfather, recognizing that these were two extremes that need to be reconciled, not rejecting either, but embracing both, and create something called Tiferet. You're supposed to imagine these people standing there before you, and then you could pick one that resonates with you. And that's the beginning stages of how you start your tefillah. If you're just saying the words and you're not using the emotion, the imagination to make it real, you failed your tefillah. I'm telling you it works, but it has to be real. If you're not engaging the mind and the emotion, it's never going to become real. Okay, so number 11. One must be willing to sacrifice their life for their sanctification of God's name. This is really hard, especially in our generation. I think most people today can't do it. I think most people today would hide. Most people today do not want to be the one in a crowd of non-Jews to stand up and have to defend the things that they believe in. I'd rather just be quiet and walk away. Let someone else do it, not my responsibility. That's a weakness in you. One must be willing to sacrifice their life for the sanctification of God's name, should the occasion arise. Jewish law identifies 3 directives: idolatry, murder, and the forbidden relations, for which one must give up their life rather than transgress. These commandments are known as the 3 cardinal sins, for which Yareg v'yal yavor, one must die rather than transgress, applies. Imagine being confronted with an idol and being commanded to bow down or face death. Instead of seeing this as a moment of fear, it's a profound opportunity to demonstrate unwavering devotion to God. You choose, not just the idea, but making the idea real. I have another page here that I do not have. I'm not going to go through it. I don't have time for that. We'll come back to it another time. Bezrat Hashem. That's the 6 constant mitzvot. Okay, statements and affirmations. Please, if you have any questions along the way, let me know. Okay? These statements and affirmations are designed to be used as spiritual declarations, meditative reflections, mindset shifts that help a person strengthen faith, overcome doubt, cultivate divine connection. They combine elements of Jewish theology, Hasidic thought, Musar, Kabbalistic teachings to reinforce trust in God, positive thinking, and personal transformation. Okay, this is how we start. Ready? Gratitude and acceptance. Again, you cannot grow unless you feel a sense of gratitude. Thank you, God. Acknowledge divine orchestration in every situation, even challenges. I can hardly wait to see the life-enhancing experience that God is going to bring me today. That's what you're saying when you say Modani. Modani doesn't resonate? Print this out. Okay? Make your day different. Overcoming fear and doubt. These thoughts of fear are nothing more than a habit. They're simply not me. These thoughts of doubt are nothing more than a habit. They're simply not me. What an easy habit to break. Remember the people of Amalek who were the gematria of the word safek, doubt in Hebrew, and feel the feeling of I am finally doubt-free. Make it real. Number 3, God's absolute presence. Ein od milvado. There's nothing else other than God. He is all there is. Wow. I had no idea God could be that loving, that kind, that compassionate. I asked God, why? Why are you doing all of this? To be giving me so much good. And he answers me and says, that's just who I am. I will be what I will be, always with you. You choose how you want to perceive and see God in this world. How is God perceived? the way you imagine him. It was many years ago, actually. It's kind of funny when my daughter Meira, my oldest daughter, we were living in Brooklyn, and my wife used to go shopping in this place on Avenue M called Meisha's. And she was about 1.5 years old, and she was carrying her on her shoulder, and all of a sudden my daughter's face is actually looking in the opposite direction, and my wife is walking forward. So my daughter says, "Oh my gosh," she says, "I see Hashem." So my wife said, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "Look, Ma, look," and she starts pointing. And she points at this garden. In the middle of the garden, there's a little statue of Jesus. It's like, that's Hashem. I'm like, holy cow, like, how is she getting that? Where's that visualization coming from? It's not coming from my house. But there's something about that particular vision or image that evokes something.
Jesus was at.
Right? He was what?
He was at that kosher market.
No, he wasn't. There was a house,
Oh,
like a couple,
okay.
because it's not like a suburban area. It's Brooklyn, right? You just have like a house and a supermarket right next door to each other. So across the street, you have this little garden over there. I actually know where it is. I could take you there if you want to see it. If you want to have that experience, I'm happy to provide. Last trip to Meisha's and the Jesus statue. Okay, fine. Accepting God's kingship. Okay, I got it. We got it. Shema Yisrael. Receiving divine blessing for vessel of giving. I finally have reached that point of becoming that vessel capable of receiving infinite pleasure in their right way. Okay. Number 6. There's nothing God cannot do by means of me, by means of us, to forgive anyone. Yes, I have the power. Great is your faith in me. God is banking on me. You choose how you want to start your day. That's, my friends, up to you. Right? All the bones in your body should tell you that you have the power to accomplish whatever you want to accomplish. Nothing is stronger than you, just like the bones are unbreakable. That is a position you need to take. The Slama Rebbe says, number 14, there are 3 levels of belief and trust in God. Faith of mind, faith of heart, faith of the limbs. A person believes in the Almighty from an intellectual perspective. This is what we were saying about earlier. But their heart is not fully engaged. This level remains largely conceptual, does not deeply impact one's emotions or actions. Faith of the heart. A deeper level where belief expands beyond intellectual understanding and penetrates the emotions. That person not only understands faith, but also feels experiencing the profound connection to God. That's the second level. Number 3, faith of the limbs. Right, the highest level is where belief becomes so deeply ingrained that it affects the body itself. The most physical and solid parts of a person represents their limbs, naturally trust in the Almighty. This is the faith in action, where one's entire being is aligned with divine trust. How many of you feel it in your bones when you wake up, you got to go out and you got to pray? How many of you feel it in your bones when you see someone who's in need, you actually have to go out and help them? How many of you feel in your bones that when you're at home and you see your parents, you need to be more sensitive and caring because of your responsibility to keep it up? Well, I'm sure you're motivated to do a lot of other things. There's a sale at Bergdorf Goodman's, and if you guys know, I have 40% off. Anyone wants the coupon? Actually, I don't. Anyway, fine. So that's all there. But you got to feel it in your bones. You have to know it in your bones. Okay, now I'm allowing infinity to manifest and its infiniteness through me. Am I allowing infinity to manifest its infiniteness through me? Are you creating a space for God to manifest everything that He is through you? That's the idea of becoming the vessel. Because if you're now, your job isn't to finish the process of wanting, it's to start it. Of course, the best version of you, God wants you to come and become that version. But we're so overwhelmed by the image of what it means to be the best me that I don't even start. And all I'm saying is that I believe from God's perspective, what He truly wants, He wants to see soldiers, individuals, who are at the very least trying to manifest that better version of themselves. Know that you were created for a purpose. When you feel lost, unsure of your direction, or question your purpose, remind yourself of this truth with conviction. You don't have to immediately understand what purpose or what that purpose or expression is. Just sit with the feeling and trust it unfolding. This is the affirmation. God, I am in awe of you. I love you. I cannot bear the thought of being separated from you. Can you dare to say that at any moment of the day? I am going to be sitting and laughing about this. Embrace faith, joy, and trust in the infinite purpose within you. You're unable to do that, you're lost. You create space, the same way you go to the gym, the same way you come to Beit Knesset. You're unable to pray properly, take the sheet with you, and take a copy and paste. If anyone wants the PDF, I'm happy to send it to you. Take the phrases that make the most sense for you. Make your own little insert in your Siddur. Cut out the things that make sense, put it in there, and change the way you pray. No one's going to do it for you. If you're waiting for an emotion, a class to help motivate you and set you on the right path, you're wasting your time. It doesn't work like that. The only thing that works is when you decide, I want more, and you go out and you do something about it. That's the only way prayer changes. That's the only way your relation with your Judaism changes. It's the only way your relation with your family changes. It's the only way you make change in this world. It's by choosing. Share Ora. The phrase Baruch Atah Hashem, commonly translated as "Blessed are you, God," more accurately conveys the meaning of God. You are the source. The word Baruch comes from the word Berecha, a pool of water, the source of all things. That is, when you're saying Baruch Atah Hashem, you're not saying, God, you're the best, you're the king of this thing, you're so cool. You're saying you are the source, the infinite source of all that is there in the world. That is your kavanah. Rabbi Kiva said, everything God does is for the good. If you ever find yourself in a situation where you feel that others are looking down at you, take a moment and reflect on this thought. I love that. I find myself, am I boring you?
No, I'm so tired. I'm so tired. Getting into the dream state.
Number 19, the Baal Shem Tov taught that a person must strive to perfect 3 essential loves throughout their lives. Number 1, love of God. Number 2, love of Torah. Number 3, love the Jewish people. You can't get to number 1, start with 3. If you have a hard time with love of God or love of the Torah, I get it. Big things. How do you start climbing the ladder? Start with V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Do your chesed, do the kindness. But you have to be doing it with the intention of it opening you up to understand what it is that God wants from us. Shalol lishma ba lishma only works when you have a clear picture of where it is you want to go. The doors only open when you want to open them. These 3 loves are interconnected, forming the foundation of faith and spiritual growth. When facing a challenge in emunah, one must remember absolute emunah is just a thought away. You're right there. You're not too far away from absolute emunah. Number 2, I find myself always in a state of joy. I believe with perfect faith that the Shekhinah is by my side and watches over me. I'm living the dream. Not Tim living the dream, but I'm living the dream. If you ever find yourself in a situation where you feel a sense of lack, take a moment to contemplate, I am finally free of all material influences to pursue spiritual matters. Ask yourself, is there a place where the completeness of God ends and I begin? I love that sentence. Reflect on the eternal truth of divine kingship. We're almost there, guys. Almost there. Hashem melech, Hashem malach, Hashem yimloch le'olam va'ed. Okay, these are the last things that I want to speak about. These are the thoughts that have to be avoided at all times. And then we'll take some questions and we'll call it a night. Okay. My own strength and my personal power brought me all the success. Right? The Torah warns against attributing success solely to personal effort. The next verse states, you must remember that it is Hashem, your God, who gives you the power to achieve success. Unclus says, this means that God placed the very idea and strategies for success into a person's mind. Bottom line, all success ultimately comes from God, not from personal power alone. Everything that is happening right now with the current president, whether you hate him or love him, makes absolutely no sense. The guy is absolutely nuts, right? You're going to start tariffing people. You're going to start doing all these kinds of crazy things. You're going to say that it worked, it didn't work. It's not him. We believe that people in in positions of power, of government power, have no bechira, they have no free will. He is a puppet. He's not making choices. Okay? It's not him, it's all Borei Olam. It is because of my righteousness that God brought me to inherit this land. The Torah specifically addresses the Jewish people, reminding them that their ability to inherit the land of Israel is not due to their own merit, but because God's kindness and the removal of wickedness from the land. The lesson is no success is due solely to one's righteousness. All achievements stem from divine kindness. Everything that we have is from Hashem. 2 thoughts. Number 1 is, if you're a narcissist and you have a crazy ego and you think it's all about you, you are unable to have gratitude. If you can't have gratitude, you can't let God in. If it's all about you and you and you and you alone, okay, you will live a life of loneliness. You can't let other people in. The only way you could build a relationship, and I know this sounds strange, but think about this. There are 3 primary relationships between the self, humanity, and God, are all experienced through one muscle called the relationship muscle. You can't divide that muscle into 3 separate parts. If you're failing in your ability to understand the self, you will not have the ability to understand humanity. And certainly if you're unable to connect to humanity, there's no way for you to go ahead and reflect and connect to God. If you're lacking in one area, you're lacking in all the areas. If you're able to have a connection in one area, that means the connection is still there for all the other areas. But if you're not creating a space where you're working on developing, building, generating more muscle, the muscle atrophies. And with time, you become numb, depressed, broken, and aimless. It's when our lives become a journey of just monetary, material success. Again, and I'm a very big believer in having monetary, material success. Have it. Make a lot of money. Go on crazy vacations. Buy a beautiful car, but not at the expense of losing yourself in time and space. B'ezrat Hashem, we will continue the conversation next week. Any questions, comments, concerns? Yes.
Is there any way of actually doing the Avodah Zarah today?
Yeah, of course.
Of what? It's not like the Mary statue.
Buddhism, some Buddhism is Avodah Zarah today. Yeah, there's still idol worship in the world today.
They're also like Messianic Jews.
Well, but forget about but you could attribute a power to something that is foreign, and that's to God, not the source.
Because I was having this conversation, they were saying, okay, I know the other 2, but like, what's the solution today? If I'm in the is it considered idolatry?
They're going to India. Have you ever been to India? Anyone been to India?
Yeah.
No, forget the worship of cows. I was in India and I was in a taxi, and all of a sudden, everything just stops. Traffic stops and the lights are green. I say to the guy, "Excuse me, sir, what's going on?" So he says, it must be a cow is passing. I'm like, what? What do you mean cow is passing? He said, yeah. He's like, the law in India is that because cows are gods, if a cow ends up on the road, you can't honk at it. You get fined 50 rupees if you honk at a cow to get out of the way. What's that? No. I'm saying that this is 15 years ago. I don't know what it's like right now. Maybe more. Right? There are temples in India you can, as a Jew, as an Orthodox Jew, cannot walk into because of the Avodah Zarah today, 2025. There's a whole controversy a few years ago with peot, with wigs, because there's some sect of Hindus that before they grow their hair out and before they cut it and give it to the wig manufacturers, they offer it to some deity as a practice in Avodah Zarah. And since you cannot have any benefit from that, anything that's involved in Avodah Zarah, those wigs become not kosher. So the answer is yes, you still have Avodah Zarah today.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Not related to this, but topically for the week, can you give your explanation or thought on how the Kriyat Yam Suf is finding your person?
Are you zivug?
Yeah. I feel like I've heard it so many times, but
Yeah, I could do that, but I just want to stop the recording.